Victor Afable, who is Mr. VA Composites, has jetted in this morning, and we have the pleasure of his company this afternoon, and we're going to go through the whole VA Composites range.
The whole?
Go through the whole range.
The entire
the
range?
history, the whole shebang. So VA formed, I'm trying to think how long ago now.
Yeah, it's been
7 years?
Yeah, it's well, I think we're on six years now. We launched in 2016, officially launched 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a good ride, and we're growing. We're worldwide now, and obviously you're one of our best dealers in the world. So we're happy to be here.
So I can say we've known you a long time, and from sort of back before VA Composite formed, way back sort of 18 odd years now. So in terms of when you started VA, so for those who don't know the brand and the product, was there a particular kind of focus, a particular almost identity you wanted to create with the brand?
Yeah. So as you know, I was a co-founder of Vylyn. Now it's been 16 years since we launched that company, and it's always been about we've always played in the more premier space, but our philosophy, our mission is always to have our shafts sold only by custom fitting. Yeah. And that's why you guys are a perfect fit. You know, you've grown. This is incredible how much you've grown. This is the first time I've been here for, pre-COVID, right?
3 years or so.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So, man, it's a great setup here now. But this is exactly what we look for. Are guys that know golf swings, know how to fit, know about shafts, know about heads. As you know, it's all about the perfect storm.
Yeah.
And we don't want you to have the ability to go into a retail location and say, hey, I want the Drago, VA Drago, and pull it off, bring it home, have your buddy install it. First of all, it's a wrong shaft. The guy didn't install it very well, and a lot of things go wrong.
And that's the key, isn't it? A great shaft in the wrong person's hands is still a bad club.
Yeah.
And I think so where the range, obviously we'll go through the range, where the range has developed out over the years.
Right.
It's been sort of great to see the different profiles, the different weight profiles, as well as bend profiles, performance characteristics infilled over the years. That's something that you've done really well. Is created shafts for each swing style. And I think that with the Baddazz line that we'll come onto as well is
right.
Obviously in that kind of higher end as well, but the Baddazz line is a great quality product, but at something which is not the super premium prices as we were discussing earlier that you've been seeing across the board in the shaft industry in particular, or across the industry. Drivers now are dear wherever you go, but I think that particularly performance, but then that secondary line coming has been a great addition.
Yeah, and I've always tried to create or design shafts that will fit a wide variety of people, even within the same series. And but we now have, I believe it's 6 series of shafts, and some are a lot more expensive than others. And it's not about the price of the shaft; it's about what shaft fits you. Because at the end of the day, you guys want your customer to be happy, and you want them to play better golf, and everybody's going to be happy. So that's really the mission here. So it could be a $150 shaft, it could be a $600 shaft. It's all what fits that particular person. And a lot of it's determined by materials that we use and production processes and all that good stuff.
I think one of from a fitting point of view, we always see that the lines that are best for us to work with are the ones that perform consistently. Not always going to matter who's swinging them, but you get when you get products that are reliable with what they're going to do. That's where we've always seen from yourselves, from Oban, from Acura, from Fujikura, the kind of the higher quality materials. Or being, is it the most important element, the materials you're using, or the actual design, the bend profile element to it?
I think it's a combination. It's like anything else. You always need to start out with good materials. I mean, that's the start of it. If it's not good, then it's nothing else is going to make sense on down the line. So, great materials. Most of our materials come from a lot of the same suppliers as the guys that you just mentioned. We buy a lot from the same suppliers, and then
there's only so many graphite manufacturers in the world.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then designs, though, we all have different designs. So materials in combination with a great design really makes a great shaft. But production is important as well. Yeah. You want to have a very good repetitive process. You want to make sure that there's no voids between the walls of the graphite that's rolled around a mandrel. Anytime you get a void, you have potential breakage. So these are all the things that we watch for. We do a lot of testing before we release a new shaft, and we're going to be coming out with 2 new shafts later in the year here.
When you're designing, obviously we'll get on the product very shortly, when you're designing new products and sort of looking to develop the range, what is it that you, I mean, obviously changing characteristics, there's no point bringing out a shaft you've already got in the range, but how do you go about the design process? Is it through saying, okay, well, there's progression in, for example, driver head sizes, CG positions? How much of the shaft design is based on the change of trends on the head versus actually kind of saying, okay, was there a particular profile we need to create?
Yeah, well, a lot of it is, what profile are we lacking? That's one. And number 2 is we do watch how the heads interact with the shaft and what's new and what's not new. The important thing now are that heads are so stable, as you know. 20 years ago, they weren't as stable. You'd hit off the heel and the head would just keep twisting and we'd have torsional breakage in the shaft. These days, there's not a whole lot of, if you hit it off the heel, you hit it off the toe, it's very stable. So we can actually design shafts now to kind of pair up with that type of head.
I was going to say, is that giving you more freedom
to go
places you just couldn't do before?
Because we don't have to, I mean, we would have to beef up the tips of the shaft in order to withstand that torsional breakage. Now we don't have to do that.
And with the fairway head sizes, driver head sizes, again, there are more and more products that are becoming fairway specific, driver specific. Is that something that will you design shafts more primarily for driver head or fairway wood? Or?
We really haven't. The design in a particular series is really just goes all the way down the line. In fact, you'll take driver shafts and turn them into fairway shafts, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that if the guys fit with a Drago, that the fairway is going to be a Drago, because he might have a problem getting it up in the air. So maybe a Sleigh or a Nemesys, or I should say a Vylyn might help you get the ball up easier in the air. So we don't typically specifically make shafts for fairways, but every series can do something different.
As you say, the different profiles, one will suit a player style, one or the other. So let's get onto the product.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Where do you want to start with? We can run through. We've got all the lines here from the Baddazz all the way through the Raijin 2.0.
Yeah, let's start. Let's just go down with how you have them laid out here. So the Raijin 2.0 is our newest shaft. We just released it this year, and it's awesome. It's perfect.
Yeah. And particularly, what were you looking with this being a kind of a second generation now, as we described, it's a very different product to the first one. But what was the real focus, and what were you wanting to get out of this particular product?
I really wanted to. The Raijin 2.0 and the Raijin 1.0, if you want to call it the 1.0, are completely different shafts, as we were just talking about earlier.
Very different feel.
Yeah. We use a different process here. It's filament winding, as opposed to most of our lines are called sheet wrapped. And filament winding, it's very consistent because it's computer driven. Yeah. And we can do 7 shafts at one time, and it's kind of like, you got the mandrel spinning and you've got the fibers going, so it's a very consistent manufacturing process. It does give a different feel. It's a little bit, I would say, a little bit firmer feeling.
Yeah, it's a much more stable, kind of stout feel.
Exactly. But so it is different in that, man. So We use different materials. The bend profile is a little bit different, and the manufacturing process is different. So different feel.
Apart from that,
but I'll tell you what, and I'm a great player, but I've been playing this, and it's I've hardly missed any fairways. It's great.
And from you saying earlier with the filament wine, does that allow you to put the to layer and the fibers in different directions more than the traditional method?
Yep, we can do that, and so we can make it stiffer and a little bit less firm in particular spots of the shaft.
And so I was to extrapolate a little bit on that is you can layer the graphite, the fibers in different directions to change the feel, the stiffness profile, the performance in certain areas. So rather than just being kind of straight down the shaft or straight across, I mean it's kind of known to be layering in double-digit different directions on shaft models over the years.
Sure.
And that helps to. Would that be more for the rigidity of the shaft or the feel, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both, but it's more. We do it more for the performance of the shaft as opposed to the feel. So,
a kind of a tighter feel, lower spinning, more. I guess sort of aimed at a more aggressive player.
I would say that. Yeah. So it is a little bit different.
Yeah. And launched just earlier this year, so obviously in our demo matrix.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Drago. The Drago, high launch, low spin. Most of everything that we do in the 65, 75 gram range in SNX is high launch, low spin. Yeah. This is probably a little bit more mid to high launch. Probably in the X Flex is probably for the better player.
Yeah.
And it's just a great all-around shaft. We sell this in 45 grams in L Flex, all the way up to 85 in an X.
Yeah. And this has been a shaft we've had a lot of success with.
Oh yeah, well. It's probably one of our shafts that does the best. And we can talk about that. So the Nemesys is also. These are basically the same bend profiles, same design patterns. The only thing that we did with the Nemesys is that we put tungsten powder within the material to make it heavy and give it that counterbalance feel. Yeah. So this shaft is the most counterbalanced shaft in golf. So basically, what that allows you to do is you can put more head weight here, standard length, put more head weight and still maintain a proper swing weight.
Yeah.
Or you can make it longer with a lighter head and still maintain swing weight. And counterbalance just gives the club a whole different feel.
Yeah, it's a totally different way. We'd sort of look at it from a point of view of how someone moves and matching that up and having that kind of higher balance, someone who's not got that heavy pull on the shaft, more of a body rotation player. And you say allows you to balance the club so that they're not having to fetch the head through. But you say with how successful the Drago performance was, being the same bend profile, the consistency of spin, the consistency of flight has been a great addition to the line, and that higher balance is something we're doing a lot more of. We're seeing much more of being appropriate for kind of more modern swing rather than that sort of traditional lateral move. The counterbalance really suits the modern swing style. So.
Spoken from a good player.
Once. Was once. An older player now. That's about all I am now.
Yeah, let's not talk about old. But one thing that we do, I want to talk a little bit about graphics, is we not only spend a lot of time on the structure, is that we spend a lot of time on graphics. So, you guys probably heard me say this, but at the end of the day, it's a 46-inch tube, black tube, and you can't see the technology in a tube. So we spend a lot of time making this a piece of art.
And so you got the most distinctive graphics.
We do.
And fun graphics, I think.
Yeah.
Shaft company out there.
So Heather's in charge of graphics, and I think after 3 glasses of wine, she comes up with great
Well, on the graphics line, we really ought to go on to the Vylyn.
Yeah. So this is
Marvel Roy Lichtenstein.
Yep, exactly. So when this was the very first line that we came out with that that whole Lichtenstein feel to it, and she showed me this, and I was like, I don't know if the industry's ready for that. So it about got us divorced, and you know, there was a lot of arguments going back and forth that at the end of the day, I just said, let's do it. And we launched it, and people love it.
So. You say Vylyn's a little bit more responsive profile. Certainly not as tip heavy as, say, the Raijin Black, the Raijin series, not as counterbalanced as Nemesys. Again, it's a very smooth, very even profile through.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a little bit softer bend profile than most of our shafts, so it's going to get the ball up a little bit easier. The takeaway though is this is it's softer in the butt section, so completely different feel. Out of all our shafts is going to be a little bit softer up here. Just plays different.
I think that's something that a lot of the feedback people get from a shaft is actually through this sort of butt end, in that you can go really soft tip and very butt stiff, and it'll feel rigid.
Yeah.
And you can go really tip stiff and very butt soft, and it'll feel very responsive. And
exactly.
So I think where a player hasn't got a kind of heavy load profile, hasn't got a kind of harsh acceleration, unless you get that bit of softness, they can feel a bit dead. And so that's always a shaft that you get a little bit of softness in the butt end, you can feel the shaft load, you can feel the responsiveness.
Yeah, because a lot of, like when you're swinging it, a lot of it's right here is the bend, right? Yeah. And that's where you're going to get that feedback. So when you're swinging a golf club. And
that's one that's proven to be a great fairway shaft for us. Maybe kind of a mid-launch, for somebody who's a lower spin driver swing, and just keeping a bit of flight and spin, but particularly in a fairway wood, similar to, again,
as well as the sleigh.
Yeah.
Sleigh is is one of our very first shafts, one of the softest bend profiles that we have, and very easy if somebody has problems trying to get the ball up in the air. Great shaft, whether it be a driver or a fairway, but I would say this is the highest launching shaft that we have. Price point's a little bit on the lower side of our line, but we've done very well with the sleigh.
And that would go hand in hand with not requiring, in some respects, not requiring the highest grade materials, because you want a little more torque, you want a little more play in the shaft. So the torque is the rotational, it's a value on rotational stiffness of the shaft, twisting resistance.
Yep.
So actually, if you get a little less twisting resistance, the head can pop through and pop a little bit of flight and spin on, as well as a softer tip to accentuate that a little bit more. So, and that's where when we talk about bend profiles, it's some zonal stiffnesses within the shaft. So it's often, high bend point, mid bend point, low bend point, and the lower the bend point, the more bend at the bottom of the shaft, the
higher it'll kick up.
And a little bit more spin, a little bit more low.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they'll often feel a little bit softer to hit with.
Right. So a little bit softer tip, so the ball's going to get up a little bit easier.
Yeah. And as driver heads have got lower spin, that kind of shafts become more and more of a requirement in drivers to keep the flight there.
Right, because a lot of times as you get softer, the ball starts to spin a little bit more, right? Another one of our newer shafts launched, I believe, the end of last year, called Baddazz, or we could call it Baddazz, if you don't like Baddazz. We came out with this because people have budgets, right? I mean, you come in here, it's like, I'm not ready to spend $800 or $1,000 for a driver and a fairway and all this. And so we really said, hey, let's come out with a shaft with a value proposition. It's a great shaft, and the price is good, and it's not low end, by no means, but compared to the rest of the line and compared to a lot of the shafts you have here, it's the price point's a little bit different. It's a little bit lower, but awesome shaft, high launch, once again low spin, and in this process we use the filament winding process as well.
Would that compare from a bend profile point of view to, for example, something like the Vylyn or the sleigh? Would it have a comparable in the kind of the sort of
I would say it's going to be a little bit stiffer profile than the Vylyn, and then and less than the Drago. So it's going to fall in between that.
And like you said, there are so many. Every company's launching high-end shafts because essentially the higher grade material is what allows you to potentially do a little bit more with the design.
Yep.
Keep spin down, keep the stability there. But equally speaking, it can lead to a lot of expensive shafts on the wall.
It sure can.
So,
yeah.
And actually, performance-wise, again, we've seen we've had great results with it. It's not necessarily a compromise not having an expensive shaft.
No, and
$100 shaft versus a $500 shaft can be much better shaft for someone.
And you don't fit by when you guys fit. I mean, you're looking at how much they load it, what's their swing speed, what their characteristics, how much spins on the ball, how fast it's coming off. You're not thinking about materials or cost.
No.
You have a lot of different shafts, not just ours, obviously. So you have a lot of go-tos for specific things that you see, characteristics of the ball flight, and you want to increase distance and you want to tighten dispersion. That's your main goal. So it's not about price point, but as long as we're talking about the line and where everything stands, it's just a little bit more of a value price point. And we've done really well with that.
And so I remember when we talked about it before it launched as a product and the concept of it, and we certainly saw a great position for it in the market. And it's an end where, and especially where we're coming into from a general kind of global side of things now, actually kind of not necessarily having, if you want to go away from the kind of the stock options and actually then have something which is bespoke, which is higher grade material, but they're not going to break the bank. I think yes, it's critical that we've got those kind of options on the wall to go, you know what, we don't need to go to that end just to get the performance.
Right.
So, and I guess from here on, there are hybrid versions of Sleigh, Drago, Raijin 2.0. The Drago hybrid is an interesting one because that one's based on where the profile sits is a 65 gram, the Sleigh's an 85, and the Raijin's an 85 as well. So what made you go the lighter weight in the Drago hybrid?
Well, every offering that we had up to the Drago was an 85 gram shaft. And a lot of that's due to when you buy an OEM club, they're 85 grams.
Yeah.
So if you're going to retrofit, if somebody has a shaft in their hybrid and it doesn't really feel right, it's easier to replace an 85 with another 85. But for slower swing speeds or, just someone wants something lighter, I wanted to go 65 grams and just have more of an offering.
And did you see the Drago profile as being particularly suitable for that? Or was it a kind of a timing element saying, well,
I don't think
something we want to do this time around, so let's incorporate it into the Drago?
Yeah, I don't think it was a profile thing. It was more what's missing in the line. And that 65 was missing. Yeah. So it's and that was a good call because there are a lot of when I say slower swing speeds, 100 or less.
Oh, yeah.
And 65. Yeah. Same thing with fairway woods. I mean, we're seeing that whole trend of 65, 55 gram shafts in fairway woods, right? Yeah. And they do well.
And that was always our kind of frustration in the hybrids in particular was that everything out those 85 grams, and now we've got some sort of 70. I mean, we'd use a lot of iron shafts in hybrids to get the weight down and keep a little stability there. But and now we're seeing many more in that kind of 65, 75 weight region. When if you're playing a 50, 55 gram driver shaft and a 65 gram fairway shaft, you don't need to go another 20 grams heavier. So and again, that's been a general great addition. I guess from a future point of view. How far ahead are you looking in terms of design-wise and cycles? How far ahead are you planning now in terms of there's a model upgrade?
From a structure standpoint, it takes us almost a year.
Yeah.
Graphics, graphics can take depends on
inspiration.
Yeah. Depends on how slow or fast Heather is.
You
hear that?
She's going to love that's on record. Victor's going to pay for that later on.
Yeah, so we try and stay out a year ahead. We've had the structures done for the new Sinister that's going to be coming out, and we're kind of tweaking graphics right now. So, like I said, hopefully by the end of the year, we're going to be able to launch that. Yeah.
And the base material developments, are you able? How much influence are you able to exert on the graphite manufacturers to say, okay, we're looking for a material to do this kind of thing, or are they working so far ahead that you're actually saying, okay, actually what you're producing, we'd really like that characteristic of what you're doing now?
Yeah, we try and keep looking for new materials that are a little bit more exotic, that can do different things that we can incorporate in the shaft performance. But the golf industry, we buy raw materials from the same people that supply aerospace, that build Boeing jets and things like that. So the golf industry is a very small footprint within their corporation. So we don't get a lot of love.
And I guess, is that because of the scale of that industry and the development that they're putting into that? Is that as they improve those materials, that then feeds back into golf because of the scale side?
Probably not. Probably not, because they, I think they're, and not that I design planes. I'd like to, probably be a better business, but I'm sure that they probably try and go lighter and lighter. I don't know. Lighter the plane, the better fuel, right? So, but not sure.
Yeah.
Like to say I know about it, but I don't.
And I guess to kind of to tie up a little bit is how long are your shafts in sight, or is there not a timeline to them? As long as they're a relevant design, they'll stay in the line. Is that generally how it works?
Yeah, that was a big reason why we went to the Raijin 2.0. We're at that 5-year point. It was our very first shaft we released, and I like to freshen it up. If at least graphics, if not structure. This time we did structure and we did graphics.
Yeah.
But 5-year point's probably when we start to look at changing it. I mean, I don't want to turn into a company that has 15 different lines. Yeah. It's a nightmare for inventory, and just too many shafts. Yeah. Too many shafts for you guys to know as well.
It is, because the nice thing is you've got the clarity between the models, and I think it can come. There can be a lot of overlap.
There's crossover now.
Brands with tens of shafts, and you kind of go, well, are they different enough to one another? And then you've got to try and work out what do you put on the wall from a differentiation point of view and things. So I would definitely agree. And from a consumer point of view, especially with the identities that you have within the shafts, your shaft ranges, you kind of know, right, if it's that graphic as that performance, and you've got that kind of 6 or 7 lines to say, right, each one is noticeably different.
Right.
So easier all round.
Yeah.
So I think that's generally a bit of an intro, a bit of a history, a bit of an intro, and a bit of a future to what VA are going to be doing with their line. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, thanks.
16 or so years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Thanks for coming and visiting. Now
it's a long time.
You can find real travel.
It's great to be here, and for anybody watching and that hasn't got custom fit, get custom fit. You spend a lot of money on going out and playing golf. You spend 4.5 hours on the golf course. Spend the money to come in and hone in and get your equipment to play the best it can play. And that's what it's all about. So we appreciate you having me on, and I know the millions of viewers that are watching this right now will appreciate it as well.
And so any questions off the back of this, we can fire them over to Vic, and we can get any answers to you. But any questions at all, let us know.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Make sure to hit the subscribe button.